Everyone enjoys stories about daring naval pilots flying for our freedom and battle-hardened captains leading the charge. But for every Cal Mason and Admiral Bishop out there blowing things up, there are dozens of unsung heroes who are just as worthy of our praise and admiration. And today, here at Conrad Naval Station, Galactic Tour is going to sing an unsung song. Meet Gunner's mate, Alfonso Lang. A master craftsman in his own right, Starman Lang is in charge of lovingly caring for the deadly armament aboard the UEES Thresher. Every day they're not getting shot at, Alfonso EVAs across the entirety of this 100-metre-long Aegis Hammerhead to visually inspect the dozens of guns and missile launchers that make this patrol ship such a formidable foe. Optics, targeting systems, mount connections, head threading, even lubrication levels all must be checked, rechecked, and meticulously maintained. Basically, all the worst parts of operating really big and powerful guns. It's like if you wanted an elephant for a pet, Alfonso would be the guy going, yeah, that's great, but what the hell are you going to feed it? With the aid of advanced diagnostic tools, each of the turrets must be correctly calibrated, so that when the gunners fire at a swift-moving target, say a squad of fighters or an incoming torpedo, they actually shoot it down instead of the gun jamming and blowing up in their face. If the Aegis Hammerhead is a sleek shark patrolling the dangerous waters, then Alfonso is the remora stuck to its armoured belly, making sure this dangerous predator stays that way. And I, for one, am damn glad to know he's there. Starman Lang, we here at Galactic Tour salute you. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be a human torpedo, well, my friend, wonder no more.
Thanks, Jack. That was great. With the UEE's recent push for militias to shoulder more of the burden of protecting the Empire, there's been a big demand for light, fast patrol ships. Whether it's hunting a pack of outlaws or a Vandal attack squad, the Aegis Hammerhead is ideally suited to the task.
Let's take a look at what it took to bring the Hammerhead to you.
So the Hammerhead is a new ship from Aegis. Basically, it's their new sort of gunboat. You know, it's a patrol ship. It's basically, if you have it as part of a group, it's kind of like, you know, it'll be like the vanguard of your fleet. It'll be there to sort of bust through the enemy's defences. And, you know, the beauty of this ship is basically it's just bristling with turrets. So it's got 6-man turrets, 2 unmanned turrets. So if you've got that in your fleet, then, you know, it's something of massive firepower. So looking forward to this in the game. Obviously, this is the Aegis manufacturer. You know, people are familiar with all the other ships we've done, you know, the Retaliator, the Javelin, the Idris. So the Hammerhead is, it's about 100 meters long, something like that. We've taken styling from both the Retaliator size ship and also from some parts from the Javelin and melded them together. We've had a lot of time already with Aegis, and you know, there's a sort of level of design theory that we expect to go into this, and so it's been basically sort of taking all those things we know, advancing it, and sort of putting it onto this new ship, and sort of working with the title of the ship, which is the Hammerhead, and basically sort of working with that and working with, you know, sort of reference from obviously hammerhead sharks, you know, that, you know, you've got to look at that, actual hammerheads, and really just sort of coming up with a sort of unique ship that will give hopefully sort of an intimidating silhouette, and that's the main theory. And so it's been a lot of fun. I've sort of been working with Gavin Rothery for quite some time on this, and hopefully fans will get to see the sort of progression of this ship. And it's gone through quite a lot of iterations. We probably did sort of seven or eight variants where we tried sort of traditional blockade runner style hammerhead ships. So we wanted to sort of push it in a more Star Citizen way, something that was unique to us. And pretty much from very early on, we had the sort of negative space inside it. So and that has sort of been a feature of the ship as we've gone along. And it's gone through ups and downs. There were some that are less good, some that it turned into like some kind of space shrimp or something. Then we veered back towards the Hammerhead, and then a couple of functionality tweaks and a lot of sketching and drawing, and eventually came up with something that we were happy with, Chris was happy with, and hopefully the fans will be happy with too.
We've got a few guys currently working on the exterior. There's someone looking at the engines, and we've got someone working on turrets, and then someone else is working on the hull specifically. We've reused some shaders that we already had on other Aegis ships that we knew would work well on this ship, and we're currently going through the process of effectively tracing over the concept mesh, which is way too expensive to use in engine. So we kind of have that as our base and then trace over that. And at the moment, the guys are kind of going through detailing up the mesh and applying the shaders that we already have, so we can kind of get a quick result in engine, so people can kind of review it at that point.
So the weaponry on this is quite formidable. You've got your 6 turrets, 6-man turrets with excellent coverage. Each of those turrets has 4 guns on them. You also have 2 unmanned turrets, and then there are also 4 missile pods, basically 2 on the top that pop up and 2 on the underneath that pop down, I guess. And I think that's in total 32 missiles, S3 missiles.
It's effectively kind of extra firepower for larger capital ships. This thing's basically just a floating collection of turrets and weapons. You wouldn't want to see one of these coming at you, basically. The turrets on the side have full motion in all directions, so and they're mounted on 4 arms to the sides of the ship, so it gets kind of good coverage of firepower.
The interior of the Hammerhead, you would see a lot of familiar things because we've used elements from pre-existing kits from the Aegis manufacturer. We've done tweak on colour schemes. It's just generally darker, a little more imposing. But there are key rooms which are unique. So you've got the Hammerhead, which is basically filled with these hydraulic rams on the interior, which you can see they're exposed. We kind of just sort of wanted to hint at that sort of feeling of maybe it could take a good hit. We don't have that gameplay, but still thought it was a really strong feature. And also within the head is basically the docking collar. And underneath that is the bridge, basically. So that's kind of another unique feature. The bridge is actually, when you're going to be looking out, you're going to have the head above you. So it's going to give it quite a unique feeling.
You have captain's quarters, which is solely just for him, where he'll reside. He'll have his own bed, his own shower, his own toilet. Then you have the crew quarters, which will be for 7 people, as well as a co-pilot's separate room. You have a small mess hall, where they can go for food, because when they're on the ship, they're there for months, stretches at a time, so they need to be able to sustain themselves. There's a cargo room that can, I think, 5 meter square area-ish. There's hallways leading to where the turrets go as well, engineering consoles, things like that.
I mean, obviously it's going to be cool because you're going to be coming into dock and you're going to be right there. It's going to be right in front of you and stuff. The other areas are basically the sort of the cargo room, which basically is just on 4 massive, well, I'd say medium-sized hydraulic rams, and they lower down and they can hold a good amount of cargo. They can also hold a rover. That was one of the requirements, just managed to squeeze them in. And then that's also sort of combined with some of the sort of exposed engineering, because the engines are essentially on either side of that room. And there's a small sort of cubby hole basically for the mechanic. And hopefully, I think it will give quite a nice experience, because you'll be sort of tucked away in there, but you'll also have good coverage of your cargo room. And also that leads to one of the rear turrets. So it's quite a nice vantage point. My favourite features, I think, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. I think like overall probably is the hammerhead and just the sort of the silhouette of the ship, how it's all come together. You know, I think it's really well designed. I think that's probably my favourite part of it, you know, aesthetically. But in terms of functionality, you know, one of the things that the turrets needed to do is basically have really good sort of coverage in any angle. So we had to come up with a system where players can get into it, and then it then sort of moves away slightly from the body to give extra maneuverability. So the fans and players pretty much have really good coverage from any direction. And so we've achieved that. And I think it's just, obviously Star Citizen, we always have a lot of things that we've got to take into account. Gameplay, what fans want to see, bunk rooms and all those kind of things, captain's room and stuff. And it's just a matter of approaching it logically. Obviously this is not our first ship. But with Gavin, it was our sort of first big ship in terms of like from start to finish, full turnkey. So just sort of working on different layouts in terms of flow and, getting the cargo room in there basically and making sure it can hold stuff like, say, a rover, just taking into account all those sort of small things. So for me, it's more of it's not so much one thing, it's the sum of everything. It's the sum of all those things basically that has come together, because it's been quite a journey. And so the fact that we've been able to hit all those targets and still the ship remain aesthetically in the sort of direction that I wanted, I think that's probably most what I'm happy with.